Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned into another live edition of the LockerGnome Daily Report, or TLDR for short. It's amazing just how time flies when you are trying new features of an operating system. That's exactly what's been happening this week with iOS 9. I have a feeling that a lot of the complaints in relation to battery life with iOS 9 on existing iOS devices are specifically because you're using them more. That's the problem. So you want to save battery life, don't use your devices. I hate to be, pretty blunt about that, but it's true. If you're using something more, it's going to drain quicker. And especially if we're talking about a new version of an operating system. I'm not mad, I'm not angry, I'm not being anything but direct. Now, as far as the frame rate droppage is concerned, it is so inexcusable. I really don't know what the hell Apple's thinking. Now, today with TLDR, of course, every day, we cover it into three parts. We've got the Q&A with you and me, diving into an AMA, and then covering tech news views. Today's question is a pretty big question, and that is why I basically in the position where I can no longer fight the culture that is surrounding me. It's stemming the tide. Why am I reversing my decision on ad blockers? This is something that I know a lot of people are just going to be, dancing and pounding me for it, but it's just unfortunately something that I have to do with work. This is something that, hang on just a second. Okay, so this is something that I know I have to deal with, given that I've been doing what it is that I do, or for about 20 years now. By and large, having to reverse my stance on something is a challenge, but I've done it before. It's not without precedent. Some people are still not going to listen, but that's really on you. It's not necessarily on me, because I'm going to explain myself very, very clearly. First, before I dive into the reason why I'm reversing my stance on ad blockers, let me explain that after that, within this same broadcast, I'm going to be doing an AMA. We've got a few questions from patrons, largely tech questions. John Whitaker's asked quite a few. Mitchell C. McClendon, Corey Moore, and Liz apparently also asked a question. As we're streaming this live on YouTube, the AMA is just for patrons. You can become a patron. Head over to chrispirillo.com. I'll come back to that in a second. And then after AMA, we go into Tech News Views. And Tech News Views is a chance for me to dive deeper into the topics of the day, including one of the topics that I guess is really kind of launching into TLDR here. So, TLDR is three parts. You get all three if you're a patron. If you're not, you get one of three. So if you want more tech talk, you can get it. And this is something that even if I say it every day for the rest of my life, some people are still going to wonder why they don't get all of TLDR. No matter how much you explain something, you seem to have to explain it over and over and over again. And that's fine to the people who like explaining things over and over again. I usually don't. So for years, to address the question, why am I reversing my stance on ad blockers? For years, it was really being used by people who would consider themselves a part of my community, people who would claim to support me, but in fact were not really supporting me. Just because you're sitting there and you're watching a video or listening to something I say doesn't necessarily mean that you're supporting me. It means you're listening. That's great. Support would mean that the relationship we have together is symbiotic. Well, when an ad blocker typically has walked into the middle of the picture, you're breaking that symbiosis. You're making it such that what I might be doing for you is not being offset by certain mechanisms that have been put in place. Whether we're talking about donations, whether we're talking about patronage, whether we're talking about ad serving, whether we're talking about sponsorship attention, whatever it happens to be. And for 20 years, it was relatively easy to engage a community and to be able to cover costs and to be able to grow and to be able to do more for you. But just like with anything, it takes time and it takes resources. And the more time you spend on one thing, well, the less time you can spend on another. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, we all have to pay bills, unless you're a communist. Now, if you're a communist, all bets are off. Now, I know there are a few communists who are out there in the community, and they, proclaim certain things from their very, 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 very small-minded viewpoint. But with ad blocking, for years, I'd consider taking, and I had taken the stance that it was relatively immoral. It was cheating the system. And I still very much feel that way. And, I've realized that I as much as I am entitled to my own feelings about what ad blocking can do, what it represents, what it is doing. And even though this has been a part of a conversation for years this has been going on. Well, with the release of iOS 9 and content blockers, this has become an issue that's now been pushed to the forefront. With the popularity of iOS, with the popularity of iPads, and the popularity of iPhones, and mobile web surfing increasing on a regular basis, and a lot of value pushed through content being offset by advertising. Writers need to get paid, video producers need to get paid, everybody needs to get paid. And, here's the thing. If you don't think that someone needs to get paid, well, then you don't need to get paid. So you can't really have it both ways. You can't claim that one person's time is worth more than yours, necessarily, okay? So if you're getting paid for your job, or if you want to get paid for a job, someone else deserves to get paid for the things that they do. Unfortunately, for the longest time, advertising has been the simplest way to get that done, to give you free content. Trust me, web publishers, people who publish on the internet, independent producers, as well as people who have well-established entities, they want to give you free content. They do. They absolutely do. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule. Unfortunately, they can't give you free content for free. It just doesn't work that way. And I just want to explain that very, very clearly to everybody. This is the part of the conversation that tends to get ignored when it gets swept up in, the advertisers are doing horrible things and they're tracking. I agree. There are some ad companies that are doing horrific things. And trust me, I would not be wanting to be on the side of the people who are violating things that are very much something that you might value, okay? So this is one of the reasons why I'm basically reversing my stance. As much as I don't like what content or ad blockers are doing, what they're about to do, I can no longer fight that. I can't. And I knew this very, very clearly maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I put a finer point on it last year when I launched the Patreon campaign. So I've got the Patreon campaign. I tease ChrisPirillo.com because it's the easiest way for people to remember, because they know my name, Chris Pirillo, and it gets redirected to the Patreon campaign at this point. So for the people who say that, ad blockers need to be in place, okay. All right. I'm done fighting. I'm done. But I'm also done giving everything for free. So as much as people might complain about the nefarious nature of ads and ad trackers and crap and scripts and everything that might hurt you, I get it. Trust me, I get it to the nth degree. As much as you take that stance, I'm taking the stance of, I'm still giving you some content, but a lot of it is going to be going to the people who are actually making it happen. And by and large, that's patrons at this point. Now, that could very well change. Should I be able to find a sponsor? And a sponsor would be something like a native advertiser. And what would that mean? To define it for those of you who aren't publishers, who only just take in free content. A native ad might be product placement, and where I mention, okay, this show's sponsored by X company, that company, this product, whatever. And explain to you that without them, the show would not be possible. Should I be able to find a sponsor? The game changes. That's fine. It's great. But see, that's the thing. With a native ad, you can't block it. You can not listen, but then you're not really taking a part in the content that's being produced. You're not a part of the process. It's not symbiotic. The symbiosis happens when you get what you want and I get what I want, and maybe someone else in the process gets what they want. The sponsor that you can't necessarily block. So the only way for me to continue to produce free content on a regular basis, or as much as I have in the past, content that you say you value from me, that you want more of, and I found that by and large when I'm talking about technology, that's what a lot of people out there seem to want me to talk about, and I've kind of, you notice I've backed away from a lot of it, because I don't want to put forward an effort in leveraging the 20 years of experience that I've had to produce a 5-minute video that you're breaking a term with me on if you're blocking ads. But I'm not saying that, it's necessarily, I'm not going to blame you at this stage. This is what I'm saying. So it's kind of like I'm moving the conversation forward. If you're going to block ads, fine. But understand that you're hurting other people in the process. Innocent indie producers. That's what you're doing. By doing that, now you could whitelist potentially, sure. I don't think a lot of people are going to take that step at all. And unfortunately, that just doesn't scale. It doesn't scale when you're dealing with a cavalcade of easy ways to circumvent the system. And so this is why I've had to step away from blogging, doing a lot of writing. The email newsletter I'm still sending out because it's simple enough to do. But by and large, one of the reasons why I just stopped producing as much tech stuff as a lot of people wanted me to, at least in public. That's the weird thing, is that I see people who aren't paying attention saying, well, where's all the tech stuff? I'm doing it every day. But now with ad blockers, this is very much a tech conversation, folks, because it's never been easier to install an ad blocker. Whether we're talking a desktop web browser, tablet web browser, mobile web browser, it doesn't matter. When you install something like that, and I'm saying that's fine, it is on you. Understand what is going to happen. You believe you're protecting your data. My guess is those companies that want to get your data will find another way of getting your data. In fact, it may even be worse the next time around. They're going to struggle even more to get you to do what they need you to do in order for them to pay their bills. So expect that ad blockers are going to be blocked from seeing certain things. What do you want me to say? Okay, well then you're going to stop looking at those resources, potentially. Those resources may have to figure out other business models, potentially. The way that I found a balance for the time being, without having an extended sponsor engagement, and that's, believe you me, let me go ahead and insert this as well. Insert, assert, whatever. I'm looking for a way to find a long-term sponsor to be able to deliver free content for you, largely in the tech realm, because I know that's a lion's share of what people might want. Now, granted, I have said that the vlogging stuff is as fun as it is. It still gets higher engagement and largely a greater degree of positivity compared to tech. Tech always seems to surface troglodytes in the comment threads, but that always seems to happen anytime you talk about something that some people treat as a religious experience. I no longer hold you accountable for violating that contract, that unspoken contract with me, that symbiotic relationship that you might break. I'm not holding you responsible for it. And that's something that a lot of people are not going to understand when I say something like that, because it is, you're breaking that relationship. You're severing that support mechanism because you are cutting off an opportunity. That's fine. I can't fight it anymore. I'm done fighting it. I'm done taking the stance of immorality in relation to ad blocking or content blocking. There are too many bad things that can happen. I mean, with those nasty things that might load within a web browser. And the last thing I want to do is be at odds with you, which I already know I am in many ways, to the people who listen or that pay attention. Because when I launched the Patreon campaign last year, I knew this was coming. I knew. Even before iOS 9 was announced and content blockers built into the operating system and these apps available, making it easier to block ads, I knew people were blocking ads. And honestly, I was tired of supporting them because they weren't supporting me. So, a few things here I'm going to lay out. If you're going to block ads, okay, that's on you. I would ask very kindly that you move past the free content that you might get if you want it from me and become a patron. Easy to do on a monthly basis. They make it very, very simple, and it just automatically happens, and then you get all of TLDR, whatever it happens to be for that day, and it's become about an hour long. These Q&A deep dives are usually 10 minutes, maybe a little longer, depending on what I happen to be talking about, if I really, really feel interested about the topic. Or, you could wait until I find a long-term sponsor, or, you could decide that other people are worth paying attention to, and that's fine. There's only so much attention that you have, and I accept and understand that I may not be the only person out there who might give you something that you want. Of course, a lot of people do still turn to me for specific advice, and they're looking for my opinion on a matter, and I'm happy to share it. I really am. But without figuring out that value, my value in that chain, unfortunately, it's no longer symbiotic. I can no longer count on ads. I can no longer count on people to not block ads, and so that puts me in a very precarious position. So I move forward with creating special content, unique content, by and large, tech-related content in the way I'm doing it right now with the Patreon campaign, and expect to do even more of that in the coming months and years. I'm not going to reverse my decision and just turn everything free. It's not going to happen. But I'm watching a big shift that's happening in the publishing industry, and a lot of people are freaking out. A lot of people. So, I'm telling you, you want to block ads? Fine. Just become a patron. That's it. If you want to block ads and the resources that I'm trying to provide for you, become a patron. Honestly, apart from saying that every single day, there's not much more I can do, because it's already at the point where the discussion is just pedantic. Like, why I even have to spend time talking about this is beyond me. It's an asinine conversation. Because people on one side believe they're right, and the people on the other side believe they're right, and people like me are stuck in the middle. And it frustrates me to know that I'm at odds with the people who want to know the things that I know. But I can't do it for free. I want to give you free stuff, but I can't do it for free. So the patrons get a lion's share of my time, my lack of intelligence sometimes, my attention, and specifically my insight in relation to things that are absolutely going to matter to them. I made this pitch last year. It's been going on about 2 years now. This hasn't changed. My position on ad blockers has. I'm not going to side with the advertisers on this. Sponsors are different. Native advertisers different. I'm talking about blanket ad banner things that annoy the hell out of you. I don't want to annoy you. I don't. But I'm also not going to hurt myself in the same in the same breath. I don't want to annoy you, apart from the regular Chris Pirillo annoyances. Rob Madden says, I use uBlock Origin to block ads. It also protects you by blocking sites that are known to have malware, sites that have fake software. It's cross-platform, and I use in Pale Moon and Chrome. Never heard of Pale Moon. That's interesting. Rob is a patron, by the way. And so, like I said, if you're going to run them, so if you want to support me, and if you want to listen to the things I say, or read what I have to say, become a patron. That's it. That's it. It's really, truly that simple. It is that simple. If you're going to block ads, go the extra mile to support the content creators that you don't want to see disappear. And if you're still listening to me, you're telling me that you don't want to see me disappear. I have half a mind to just make this the public TLDR today and show everybody what they're missing. Normally, I would cut it off right here, but I think that's what I'm going to do with the video. If you can't tell, I'm mildly frustrated for a few different reasons. I'll be fine. I'll be okay. I've been through probably worse in and over time. Normally, this is the time then that I would cut things off, move on to the AMA, and then go into Tech News Views, as I kind of talked about earlier in the broadcast. But I think what I'm going to do is just continue to roll forward, as I normally do for patrons. Because some people say, well, I want to know what I'm missing. Well, you know what you're missing. 20 years. 20 years. To the day... Yesterday. No. Okay, I'm sorry. 19 years? 19 years. Close to 20. Can we round up? I'm horrible at the maths. You know that. Mitchell C. McClendon asks, Chris, you recently mentioned that both your parents have the iPhone 4 and not the 4S. That is true. Kind of nutty. I couldn't believe that. They were showing me they couldn't update to iOS 9. I'm like, are you kidding? And I looked even closer. I'm like, you have the iPhone 4. They didn't have iOS 8. They're still on iOS 7. Poor things. And your father will be upgrading to the iPhone 6 Plus. That is his intention. Will your mother not be upgrading to either iPhone 5S or 6S? I personally plan on upgrading to the iPhone 6 Plus later this year between November and December. Thanks. Mitchell, my understanding of the situation is, well, hey, my mom, I believe, would be best served by an iPhone 6 Plus, if only because her sight is worse than mine and worse than my father's. My dad, yes, does see the iPhone 6S Plus, as a possible upgrade path, which is, I would say, night and day between the iPhone 4 and, a phablet-sized pocket computer. The reasoning that they just held off for as long as they have is they just didn't see the need. Like, well, this one looks fine, but I'll wait for the next one. This one looks fine, but I'll wait for the next one. So here's, okay, so 4. So they missed the 4S, the 5, the 5S, the 6. So, skipping, 4 generations of phones, man. Ugh. But the funny thing is, my mom, she really does like her iPhone 4, which is great. For her, it serves a purpose. It's fine. It's great. I believe she could be benefited by the iPhone 6S Plus because of the screen size, specifically because she has issues with vision, as do I, genetics. So a larger screen may very well help her see the things that she could not see before. Her issue with a larger phone is that she's afraid it's too big. That's her number one fear. And it's a reasonable fear. It's a cogent fear. It's one of the reasons I went with the 6 over the 5S last year and treading cautiously into the realm of the phablet. the iPhone 6s Plus. Because of the physical size. It's something that bothers me because she likes having it in one hand. We have small hands in my family. She likes that. It just feels compact. It feels nice. She feels like she put it in her pocket. It's not a big deal. The phablet would change everything. It genuinely would. And she doesn't even want to see the 5S because she says that's too big. Or the 5 or the 5C or whatever. She says that's too big. She's fine with the 4. Now, she may be stuck with the 4 for an indefinite period of time. At the point where it breaks, she complains about battery life. She complains about photos being blurry. She complains about a few different things in relation to that phone. But screen size is not one of those things she complains about. But I know, and I can tell her. I said, well, you've been using this phone for 4 years. The battery's not going to work the way it used to. Doesn't matter what you do. It was not designed to work forever. That's technology. That's why technology tends to be a horrible investment. Apart from using it as a tool, as a means to an end, that's an investment. But buying something and expecting, in the realm of tech, and expecting it's going to work forever is an exercise in folly. So as much as I would like to see a Darth Vader PS4, or that, what is it, the $10,000, $20,000 watch, there are only 500 available, the Darth Vader watch. I was having a conversation on Twitter with somebody today. I'm like, no, it's horrible. Why would I? No, it's tech. It's going to be worthless in like 3 years. A year now. I mean, technology gets turned over so quickly. This iPhone 6 is going to be worthless to me in a week. iPhone 6. Now it's worth something. In a week, it's worth nothing to me. So Mom has no intention on upgrading because of the bigger sizes on iPhones. That's the thing that's holding her back. It'll be interesting to see that, yes, my dad wanting to move into the phablet territory, the iPhone 6s Plus, I believe is what he's going to be getting. And he's looking forward to it. That's what he believes, for whatever reason. Could be screen size that's driving him there, too. Not any other feature. Not battery, not the optical image stabilization, which, of course, is the feature that won me over, ultimately, and moved me from the 6 to the 6s Plus. Because I'm not even looking forward to the screen size. I say that now. But in another month, I'll wonder how the hell I got along with the 6. I'm like, God, the screen is so small. That's how it works. You move to a larger screen device, and then you wonder how you dealt with such a small screen. It's the nature of the beast. I had that issue back in the day with like physical screens on computers, going from a 14 to a 15-inch, going from a 15 to a 17-inch CRT. Back in the day. Because once you go larger, it's so hard to go back. It's really hard to slide backwards. I did when I moved from 2 screens to 1 on the iMac, but it was fine because I didn't really use that second screen as much as I would have wanted to over time. It'll be interesting to see if Mom makes if she has a change of heart after she sees the iPhone 6s Plus, my dad using it and seeing the benefits. Maybe she sees the photos from Dad's camera or the videos from Dad's camera. Maybe she sees that his battery might last closer to all day. Maybe if she sees all those benefits. Maybe she sees it's faster. Maybe she sees all those things. She would probably be inclined to move to a 6, a 6S. Maybe a 6. I would encourage her to go to a 6S or a 6S Plus at this stage. My recommendation for any new series of hardware is buy as soon as they release it or pretty close to it because you've got a cycle. It should last for a great period of time. No sense on waiting. I told them that, it may be a benefit to buy into the program that Apple set up, whereby you get a new iPhone every year. You don't have to worry about it. I'm like, that is just the best bet for them because they tend to buy phones like they bought computers. Buy it once, have it for 5-10 years. But unfortunately, phones are developing at such a rapid pace in terms of speed, in terms of capabilities, in terms of what one device can handle that an earlier device cannot. PCs didn't move forward as quickly. It became a law of diminishing returns. And not just in terms of speed, but in terms of what it might be able to provide for you. Well, when you're talking about a device that's an all-in-one computer here, that's a primary camera for many people, you're talking about something that is improving every year. And if anybody doesn't see the innovation in every incrementation of at least iPhone products, they're not paying attention. You're not paying attention if you think otherwise. If you think that Apple's not innovating, you're wrong, and B, you're not doing any research. And if you are doing quote-unquote research, my guess is that it's trying to find data that supports your point of view. Corey Moore asks, Chris, I currently have an original iPad Air and I'm considering upgrading this generation, not to the Pro, because I'm not the use case for it, but perhaps the Air 2 or even the Mini 4. I don't use my current iPad for much other than a media device, some productivity, and some light gaming. I can't see what I'd be giving up functionality-wise by going with the Mini over the Air 2, except the screen. For savings of $100, I'm seriously considering going that route. What would you do? Let's see here. You know, between the Air 2 and the Mini 4, and as far as I can tell, they're pretty much the same kind of iPad, minus screen size and depth and, other minute differences. The big difference is screen size, honestly. And I know some people would argue, well, there's more than that. Okay, I'm not into talking about specs. He's asking about this being a cogent upgrade. A reasonable upgrade. The iPad Air was fine. I like the iPad Air. Upgraded to the iPad Air 2 immediately and was happy, if only because it was faster, demonstrably faster, and I write that off, or I guess chalk it up to the fact that it has 2 gigs of RAM. The 2 gigs of RAM, in my estimation, made all the difference in the world with the dropped frames in iOS 8 on the iPad Air, or even iOS 7 on the iPad Air versus iOS 8 on the iPad Air 2. The difference was, to me, it was night and day. Of course, then I install iOS 9, and oh, look at that, frame drops are back. You can expect frame drops in every new version of iOS. That's it's pathetic. I think Apple's paying attention to different things than I would pay attention to. But that's just me. Anytime a platform can be made to look clunky and inelegant compared to Android, like the later versions of Android, I'm telling you, Google is cleaning Apple's clock when it comes to design and when it comes to responsiveness. Oh, night and day. Now, that does not mean I'm going to be starting to use Android products. There are a lot of reasons that I've chosen Apple as my ecosystem. So, here's the thing. If you're fine with the iPad Air, I'd say stick with it. Don't. I mean, you're considering upgrading, but why? Perhaps the Air 2 or the Mini 4. Why? If you're just using your iPad for not much more than a media device, some productivity, and some light gaming, then why make that leap? If you are going to make the leap, save the money. But of course, in saving money, you may also be getting a smaller screen. What do you value most in your iPad experience? Is it the screen size? Is it the speed? Is it what it is? You don't have to upgrade. You don't. And it's nice that you've already identified yourself as someone who's not interested in the iPad Pro, because that is certainly for a different type of user. A user that I would imagine is more like the person who has a laptop PC running Windows and an old iPad, wondering what are they going to get next. Well, the iPad Pro really is the best of both worlds for them if they like iOS. And a lot of people who might use iOS on a regular basis understand that its ease of use and very straightforward ease of use trumps a lot of what they've experienced with traditional PCs. The iPad Pro is designed for that type of user. Or, the professional user, or someone like me, a power user. And, the fact that you've identified yourself as not in that category, I think, is good. It's a step forward. Between the two, God, if it were me. I like the screen size of the iPad Air. I like the screen size of the Mini 4 as well, but I like a bigger screen. I do. I do appreciate a bigger screen on the tablet. I've always liked bigger screens. It was really sad for me when Apple moved from 17-inch displays down to 15 as the biggest one. To me, that was a step backwards for me, because I like those 17-inch screens. But I like I said, I like the bigger screens. So when it comes to making that decision, I'd say save some money. I think it's possible that the Mini 4 will serve you well, or at least well enough if you're looking for an upgrade, if you're looking for a bump, and for a savings of $100. And I think you're fine. I think you'll be served well enough either way, the iPad Air 2 or the iPad Mini 4. Again, the primary difference between the two are going to be a screen size. So you have to decide, is screen size important? And if it is important, iPad Air 2. If it's not important, the iPad Mini 4, Corey. Good luck with that. And ultimately, I don't care. I really don't care. I'm not here to try to convince you of another religion. I'm not here to convince you to get something else. It's your decision. It's your product. You're the one who has to use it. You're the one who has to buy it. Actually, I don't know if you have to buy it. Give me a second. Well, you may have to earn a lot of points, but the Feature Points app that I talk about all the time, go.tagjag.com/free points, is, I think they may be turning over to the iPad Mini 4. They were basically allowing you to convert points to the iPad Mini 3 for a while. Let me see here. Yeah, you can get an iPad Air 16 gig Wi-Fi for about 300,000 points. I thought they had a Mini in here too. Yep, iPad 3 16 gig Wi-Fi Mini for 258,000 points. Oh, by the way, Pac-Man, normally $7, currently only 25 cents. That's in the App Store. You can earn that by way of go.tagjag.com/free points. I've talked about it damn near every day. It's how I convert a lot of points to gift cards on Amazon. It's how I get apps that I'd normally have to pay for. It's how I get them without paying for them. It's very, very convenient. It's very, very easy. In fact, I'm looking right now because I converted, because I wanted to test out an app that would normally cost me money. I converted some points to the app redeem code, free, and completely legal, which is cool. Getting free stuff without paying for it. Hey, like I said at the beginning, I'm all for it. I like giving free stuff. I like getting free stuff. So that's how you can earn one or the other. Granted, it's the 16 gig model, but you can earn it. It may take a while, but you don't necessarily have to pay for everything. John Whitaker asks, hi Chris, I sold my iPhone 6 Plus last Saturday so I could pre-order my iPhone 6s Plus, 64 gigs. So now I'm using my old BlackBerry Bold, 9900 until I get the new one. But I didn't realize just how much I used my 6 Plus for photo editing, Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, emails. How do you think you would cope without your iPhone and went back to using a basic phone until your new phone came? Or your new iPhone came is what he said. I couldn't. In fact, that's the reason why I will not sell an existing iPhone until my new one is in hand and working. And then usually I'll send it in a week after or so. Because, there's no way. There's no way. It's kind of like, like I said, it's kind of like going, how do I explain this? It's like driving at 65 miles per hour, fast. What is that, 100 kilometers per hour or whatever? I don't know what the equivalent is. You're driving that fast and then being forced to drive 15 miles per hour. That's the difference. It's jarring. It's difficult. And it's not easy to accommodate. So more power to you, John. I think you could have taken a different path. Did you need to sell it then? Was that the time to convert? Because a lot of the programs where you can trade in will often give you leeway, like 30 days leeway, grace period. So the best time sometimes is, and I think, who asked this? Tony Yoon asked this last week. It was one of his questions. The best time is when they're running specials, when they can give you bonuses, and to do it at a time where you're within a 30-day window of that upgrade. And take advantage of that 30-day window. If you traded it in because you had a good deal, like let's say they offered you, I'm just going to throw a number out there, like twice as much as you would normally get, and you know that because you've done research and you know exactly what you can get for that device, or you sold it at a higher price, or whatever it happened to be, then the convenience factor kind of disappears, and you might be able to live without it. I still wouldn't do it, but it would be a deeper consideration because again, at the time where a new phone is announced or released, well, the past generation will often lose value, more so with devices that aren't flagships. I've seen a lot of flagship Android devices hold value pretty quickly, or over time, whereas others would lose their value quickly. Anything from Apple, generally speaking, holds a higher value because it's sought after. There's a value to it, and other devices and manufacturers sometimes question mark. Now, bigger brands usually they'll hold their value because there's that name recognition. That's not the reason to go with one product over the other, that the fact that it holds its value, but knowing that it holds value at the point where you'll sell it makes it a bit easier to accommodate the price. So that's the way I always look at it. Like, is it more affordable? Is it, when I'm not going to hold on to this phone. It's like I said, it's worthless to me. And in a week's time, this will become worthless to me. Like, worthless to me. But somebody else sees a value in this. I'm not saying it's a worthless device. I'm saying to me it becomes worthless. Remember, worthless is relative. What's worthless to you is not necessarily worthless to somebody else. So as much as you're getting along with your BlackBerry Bold 9900, I could not. I wouldn't even consider it. I'd be, nope, nope. If forced, honestly, if forced to give this up prematurely, like for a week, 2 weeks, a question mark time, I'd wait. I'd skip a generation. No way. Too painful, man. Too painful. That's crazy. Why would anybody want to do that? Why? John, you got to tell me, why did you do it? John Winokur says, he also asked a question. Do you think with Samsung not releasing the Note 5 in the UK yet and removing the ability to add storage will help to give Apple a stronger following now? Well, I'd argue that, and I think I mentioned this and it was a while ago, Samsung is, well, I guess with in terms of mind share, competing with Apple. But I think it's competing with other Android manufacturers more than it is Apple. Even though Samsung wants to make it an Apple battle, and Apple and Samsung are going back and forth, Samsung is being hurt more by other entities in the Android ecosystem. And as much as they thought it was a great idea to, remove the ability to swap batteries, or as much as they thought it was a good idea to remove the ability to use removable media in their current gen Galaxy products, it wasn't. And that kind of shocked me. Some people decided to move to Apple. They said, well, now that it has the same thing as Apple, I might as well move to Apple. Some people did. But there are people who just don't want to use iOS, who don't like Apple. Where are they going to go? Within the Android ecosystem. There are a lot of Android competitors. A lot. That's the nature of the beast. Just like there are a lot of Windows PC competitors. A lot. There's only one Apple competitor, and that's Apple. You have choice. That makes it a competitor for you. But in terms of who they're fighting for, they're fighting to you have a good experience for users. For an Android manufacturer, not only are they fighting to get market share, but they're fighting to keep market share from other Android device manufacturers. This isn't a battle between Android and iOS so much as it's a battle between Android and Android. Listen, this is something that really frustrates me when, and I know you're not trying to frustrate me, John, by asking this question. Why do you think Samsung's in a tricky position? Yeah, granted, I think they made some crazy decisions. I think every company makes crazy decisions, though. Glad I'm not the one who has to make the decisions. Otherwise, I'd be the one being called crazy. When you've got competitors that are creating flagship-like devices, like the OnePlus 2, or the, let's say the LG G4, or even at the lower end of the scale, Huawei and Xiaomi. I'm getting used to saying these names, but they're very relevant in certain parts of the world. And as far as good Android experiences are concerned, why pay $500, $600, $700 for a brand with an Android experience, or pay substantially less and get just as good of an Android experience, if not better? Android. Remember, I'm saying Android. Okay, this is iOS, not... We're past that conversation. We're talking about Android. The Android ecosystem is going to eat itself. And one competitor is going to race to the bottom and create a compelling experience. That's going to take away from the top. That's going to hurt Samsung more than Apple ever could. In course or out of course, whether we're talking about devices or not. It's the fact that you have Android OEMs fighting with one another. That's great. That's great. Competition. You're looking for a better Android experience. Why? Why would you spend $500, $600 on an Android product when you can spend $50 on an Android product that works just as well? I don't know. It's not for me to decide. I'm not saying the cheapest Android device is $50, but really, honestly, with Android, it's a race to the bottom. It's the nature of the beast. Just like with Windows PC, it's a race to the bottom. Because the only way you can compete when you have an operating system that anybody else might be able to use, the only way to compete is by price. I mean, yeah, you can have different features, and that's nice, and some manufacturers are going that route. Their value add is that you can do this, that, or the other thing with their product. That's smart. That's the way to differentiate. But when you're talking about Android, unless you have that that true value add, or the true brand, not just equity, but the brand loyalty, is going to be a challenge. Because along comes an Android competitor out of nowhere, and suddenly, why would they want to spend more money on you for Android? Why? I don't know. Don't look at me. And if you were looking at me right now, and you asked, well, Chris, why don't you buy this 7-inch tablet over here on Android? It's $100. I'm like, why would I do that? Yeah, now Amazon's got a 7-inch tablet that's pretty much Android for $50. Why would I go the other direction? I don't know. Granted, I'm not a fan of Amazon's experience to this point. We'll see if Fire OS is any better. I'm hoping to be able to upgrade last year's Amazon Fire model. I wasn't very happy with the performance on that, even though it was spec to the gills. Spec-wise, it was amazing. Software-wise, it was... Like I said, specs are largely irrelevant. But, everything that I've talked about and, supported over the past few years has pretty much been that example. It's a living example that specs are irrelevant. And I always go back to the argument, or the position, that if specs were relevant, the iPhone never would have taken off. Wouldn't have gone anywhere. But it did. Why? It wasn't because of specs. Guaranteed it wasn't because of... You couldn't even record video on the first iPhone. I could do that on my smartphone. You didn't have 3G. I had that on my smartphone. What we determined to be a smartphone that now just looks so incredibly stupid. But it's the best we had. You deal with the best you have. So, no, John, I don't know if it's going to drive more people or out of Android if they love Android. Apple becomes a compelling alternative, especially if they only saw Samsung as the only Android OEM. But its market share is eroding. Not necessarily because of Apple. I'd say more within the Android ecosystem. You're going to have competitors race to the bottom. You can get mad at me. I know you're not mad at me. Some people get mad at me for saying that this is absolutely happening. It's like getting mad at me because the Note 5 doesn't have a swappable battery or whatever. I had nothing to do with it. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I plug in external battery packs. I've been used to that for years. Michael Law asks, what type of bug do you think Apple is experiencing in WatchOS 2? Any idea when they'll make the update available? Not sure. Really, it must have been something that would have been catastrophic, something that could have hurt, the watch update, and to get people to update and then push out another update not long after that may have proven to be too much of a hurdle. For Apple to say, well, we'll just sit on this for another week, another 2 weeks. I think, or I'd imagine, they'd be working on the bug, and if this is the last showstopper, and that's probably what it was what they call a showstopper. Something that just could not ever possibly ship with WatchOS 2. We're not talking likely a performance thing. It had to have been something deeper or more substantial. I would imagine it's going to be out within the next week or two. I would hope that it's out before the end of the month, because the next release is going to be the iPhone here next week, next Friday. I'll be doing a live unboxing, I think, in this channel when that comes in, whenever it gets in. Today I get my silicone case. That's going to be fun. The case, and I have to get used to holding a product that big. It's going to be different. But I get optical image stabilization. Oh, God. I feel like I'm trading my soul, which some people would argue I have, to get that optical image stabilization in that phone. But September 30th, within a couple of weeks, we will see the next version of OS 10, OS 10, 10.11 El Capitan. In fact, they've already been seeding the beta of OS 10, 10.11.1 to testers. That's good. Hopefully we'll see that iteration out not long after El Capitan is released. They must have seen some big deal. But I would imagine within the next couple of weeks. If they can't squish the bug in 2 weeks, it must be a big bug. Like a huge bug. I don't know what it is, though. I couldn't tell you. But they had to have had a good reason for it. A solid reason for it. Tony is back. Question number 125. With the iPhone 6s Plus rumored to be coming with 2 gigs of RAM, do you believe that it'll finally get rid of the friggin' annoying apps, web pages reloading? So, Tony, you're not just talking about a rumor. This has actually been found in Xcode's code, in the plumbing of Xcode. It's been seen. that certain models, one will have 4 gigs. This is seen from Xcode. This is like from Apple itself. It may have been surfaced, but it's not a rumor. It's been surfaced. There's a difference. The iPad Pro, Adobe had accidentally leaked that the iPad Pro would have 4 gigs of RAM. The iPhone 6s and the 6s Plus could have 2 or should have 2 according to this Xcode code. I'm looking forward to it. By the way, might I remind everybody still listening, this is the part of TLDR. Everything past the ad blocking talk, this is what patrons get every day. Every day. And I'm not even done yet. Tony's just beginning. He's got 4 other questions. Yes, it should. That's the value of having more RAM on the system, is that the system can handle more things. Having 4 gigs on an iPad Pro should make things a hell of a lot more convenient for everybody. Hey, when has anybody complained about having more RAM? The key is using that RAM effectively. And remember, iOS manages RAM differently than Android. iOS manages RAM, or this memory, different than Windows, different from OS X. Every operating system manages the RAM differently, and iOS has been able to get away with a paltry amount of RAM compared to others because it manages RAM differently. You need more RAM in an Android device because of the way Android basically executes apps and how memory is managed. iOS is different. Has been, as far as I can tell, from the very beginning. So we didn't need a lot of RAM. Granted, I think we've been aided with the addition of RAM. I think that certain processes speed up. I believe that iOS 8 did not make the speed difference on the iPad Air 2 compared to the iPad Air, nor did the bump in processor aid the iPad Air 2 over the iPad Air so much as having 2 gigs of RAM, going from 1 to 2. System animations were a hell of a lot smoother. I can tell you that much right now, by and large. iOS 9 seems to have taken a regression. Why am I seeing dropped frames still? Why? Chunk. Oh, some people call it lag. I don't know if lag's the right word to use. And I'm trying to stay away from the word stutter because apparently that's very offensive to some people in the UK. Jitteriness, frame droppage. It's nasty, and it's something that we should not have to be dealing with from Apple, from Google, or anybody else at this stage. So, yes, this is something that a lot of people saw with the iPad Air 2. The web pages that they had didn't have to reload. Their apps didn't have to reload because there was more usable memory. So, yeah, it's going to help. How much? Couldn't tell you. Because remember, that memory is going to be used for a variety of things, including helping push pixels across the screen in an efficient way. And for all intents and purposes, I think it's going to make the system a hell of a lot more responsive than it would be if it just had 2. And that's the thing. Apple is trying to position the iPad Pro to be a replacement for those who have a laptop computer, maybe an aging desktop, and an iPad. And they're trying to figure out which next computer do I want to go with. Well, I like the iPad because it's portable and it's convenient. But I need this computer because it has a keyboard and this, that, and the other thing. Well, Apple's now got that solution. So they might look and think that specs actually matter, like outright as a selling point, and say, well, that Surface PC there comes with 4 gigs, but so does the iPad Pro. So, they may have done it as a kind of a way to position themselves for marketing. I believe it has more to do with what that system could or could not handle. Big screen, a lot to do, and they're trying to position it as a system that can, well, what is it? It can handle 4K video files, editing 4K video files seamlessly. You can only edit video with a lot of RAM. You need more RAM. The more video you want to edit, the more RAM you should throw into your system. Period. So, iMovie works very well on the iPad Pro. I will try it. Can't believe I'm going to say that. It's been a while, because I've been on Final Cut Pro 10 for a while. But I am going to try it. I'm going to try to edit, or I'm going to shoot 4K video with the iPhone 6s Plus, and then when I get the iPad Pro, I'm going to edit it on iMovie. I'm crazy that way. I'm a space cowboy. Some people call me Maurice. The big advantage, yes, is that the system can handle more all at once because there's more RAM. So yes, web pages you might have open, tabs should refresh fewer times You should be able to, get in and out of apps more efficiently, theoretically, though. Haven't seen iOS 9 run on an iPad Pro. Have not seen an iPad Pro. Everything I've seen has been at a distance, and I'd expect that further that software optimizations coming down the pike with iterations of iOS 9. That's typically been the case. Let's go back to question number 126. There seems to be a lot of conflicting articles in regards to closing background apps to free memory versus leaving them be. Which do you do? If you're talking about every operating system handles things differently. I'll go by for months without closing it. The only time I ever swipe to close an app is when I'm having a problem with it. That's it. Double tap or whatever you do to swipe and close an app from the background. Apart from that, it doesn't hurt anything, and it's not really doing anything by and large. Any kind of background processing is handled independently of whether the app is running or not, depending on the permissions that you gave it, to my knowledge. If I'm having problems where it feels like my battery's draining quicker, swipe. Okay, just get rid of them all. Or just dive a little deeper into analytics within iOS 9 now to find out, well, what's taking up most of the battery? What can I kill? What am I spending a lot of my time on? And by and large, I'm finding that a lot of the battery use is because of the things that I'm spending time on. It's a new platform. I'm using things. I'm using the phone regularly on top of things. So of course the battery is going to drain quicker. Of course, it's a given. So some people don't think of this. I guess I am using it more. Well, you are. Or you probably are, especially if you have a new OS and you want to try all the new things. It's been Apple's position, and it's been people who understand this better than I do, their position to say just leave them alone. You're not really helping anything. I think it's unfortunately a holdover from the way things used to be with Windows. My dad still on Windows 7 or Windows XP, whatever. He's not on 8. I don't know if he has. He does have he has an 8 machine at home, but he only opens one app at a time. Closes everything. He does the same thing on his iPhone. Closes out the app. If he's not using it, close. I think there's a convenience of leaving it open, depending on what the app is. But I don't think you're going to gain any more performance by closing all the apps. In fact, some have said that you actually make it worse because then the app does have to reload when you go into it again, versus having it open in the background and having it staged and ready and enough of it in memory such that having to refresh everything is just not it's not going to happen. So you may actually be hurting performance by closing those background apps because they have to launch again. Something to consider. Question 127. Tony's asked 127 questions at this point, and he's numbered them all. Could it be that tech is just not keeping up with each other? For example, there are phones with no expandable storage, which seems like they are trying to encourage cloud storage, but there's no unlimited data, or phones capable of shooting 4K video, but no 4K screen. Well, just because something's capable of shooting 4K video doesn't necessarily mean that you need a screen that can handle 4K video. We talked about this yesterday, those who were listening yesterday. The reason why we're not necessarily seeing 4K screens, cost, infrastructure, do the parts exist, and benefit to the user. Is it a law of diminishing returns? If I can't see the difference, I'm looking at two screens, I say, okay, about the same size, one's a 1080p, the other's 4K, and they're this small, I can't see the difference. Is one sharper than the other? I guess you're telling me it's sharper than the other, but I can't see the difference. Maybe my eyes are just not that good. That's why Apple went with Retina, because to the eye, it couldn't see the difference past a certain point. And by and large, I can't. Even if it's like 100 more PPI on the screen, I'm like, it's a speck, it's a bragging right, but it's lost on me. It looks just the same. It looks great, but it looks just the same to me is this, or it's not that much better. So remember, the more pixels you have to push across the screen, push, not just record, push across the screen, the more system resources you need, Tony. Now, I'm not angry, I'm just being very emphatic about this point. You need more resources. You need to push pixels, resources, not just a screen that's capable of it, but the processing power, the RAM, the other thing, the video controller, all these things. So you can't just upgrade the screen and expect everything else is going to happen, automatically. It doesn't happen that way. Everything needs to happen, or in succession. You need to build this component before you can have a good experience with this component, or a good experience with that component. That's technology, though. Your phone's not one device. It's a series of several devices put together, several pieces of technology put together. It's incremental. That's a computer. It's incremental. So I don't think that tech is not keeping up. I think that there are always going to be trade-offs. Apple's always made trade-offs. Microsoft's made trade-offs. Google, everybody makes trade-offs. You can't have everything. Have all the things. It's just impossible. You cannot have everything. You have to decide what's going to be a good experience for the user. So, for Apple, it was more important for them to give, because they had enough processing power, finally, and a camera that was good enough to work well enough for recording 4K video. Theoretically, I've not seen it. I saw the Apple footage, but I always like real world footage. To handle video stabilization in hardware on the iPhone 6s Plus, not on the iPhone 6 Plus, which is a big reason to upgrade from the 6 Plus to the 6s Plus. A huge reason, really, if you do a lot of video. So you've got the video portion that's handled, and you could play it back. But if you want to play it back in 4K resolution, full 4K resolution on like an iPhone 6s Plus, rather than 1080p resolution, well, you have to have the pixels. So you have to have a better screen. You have to have a processor that can handle all those pixels. You have to have all these other things wrapped up in that device to make it a good experience. But it's this. So then Apple's going to do this. Then they're going to do this. That's what Apple does. Boop, 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 boop. Trust me, there's always been a difference between the iPhones. That difference may not be valuable to you, but it doesn't make it any less of a difference. They are absolutely, every increment has been different. Slightly, in some cases, and bigger in other cases. Question number 128. Could it possibly be that the iOS 9 stutters because it's not just a lack of optimization, but also more hardware hungry? Maybe in order to conserve battery life, they throttle the CPU on the phone, causing it to stutter and drop frames because it has to wake up. I don't know. I think it's just an immaturity. I think it's not something Apple pays attention to when they roll out a new OS. I think it's something they pay attention to with the 0.1. This is what I saw with iOS 7 versus 7.1. 7.1 was dramatically better in terms of performance. 8 versus 8.1. 8.1 was better in terms of performance. And 9, again, got dramatically better in terms of performance when I'm expecting it will. Sorry, it hasn't. It will get better in terms of performance. I have loaded iOS 9.1 beta on an iPad Mini 2. Yeah, an iPad Mini 2. I still see a good degree of frame drops. I chalk it up to code that works. It's not a showstopper for Apple, but they can get it addressed. I don't know if it's necessarily they throttle the CPU. They made a lot of changes in terms of battery conservation with the iPhone. I'm sorry, with iOS 9 specifically on iPhones. And you're looking at an operating system that it can run all the way back to the iPhone 4S, right? That's what's supported. 4S, I believe. It's got a lot to do. It's got a lot to handle. Apple makes trade-offs, for everybody to try to make all of their customers, whether they're running the latest gen hardware or not, feel like they're a part of that upgrade experience. Give them a new lease on life, so to speak. They may not get all the new features, but that's what's going to happen. You're not going to see it in either way. Can I help you? Dad? Yes?
I'm going down.
Okay.
I'll be back for your... If you need anything, let me know.
Just the mailbox.
I got the key.
Okay. It is possible that iOS 9 jitters. I don't want to use the word stutter. I'm going to try to move people beyond that. Drops frames, and I've seen it. Oh, nastily. Like, bop, 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 bop. I'm like, whoa. I don't think it's a throttling. I don't think it's a throttling of the CPU at all. I think it's just a lack of optimizations, and maybe they still have some debug code in there. And we'll likely address it in iOS 9.1. Can't say that 9.1 beta has worked any better on the iPad Mini 3. There are parts that have gotten better, seemingly, in terms of its smoothness. We'll see if that translates into the final 9.1, which I would like to believe it's going to be out next week. Because I would imagine that, they would want it ready for the new iPhones. The iOS 9.1 as the first experience for new iPhones. But I think it's just they're getting it out. It works. It's not completely cleaned up. They're getting a lot of feedback, of course, by users, and I'm sure going to theoretically work their way towards eliminating a lot of that. Theoretically. Question number 129. I don't know. Here's the thing. Sorry, let me finish up on one point. I have not run iOS 9 on an iPhone 6s Plus or an iPhone 6 or an iPad Pro. So I can't speak to a throttling. I can't speak to it being iOS 9. I can't speak to it being the iPhone hardware. I don't know. I don't have enough data. No one has enough data. We can't tell you, oh, it runs so much better on this. Well, my question is, just because it has faster hardware, does that mean it's going to be better? Here's the thing. Moving from the 5S to the 6 wasn't disappointing, but you might remember I was kind of underwhelmed. Camera didn't really feel like it was that much better. In fact, I found that in some cases the iPhone 5S took better photos in certain cases than the iPhone 6. For the most part, depending on what that photo was, what the shot was. I didn't see a dramatic improvement in that. Didn't see a dramatic improvement in battery life. Didn't see a dramatic improvement in responsiveness or speed. I know it was faster, but it just didn't. It wasn't palpable. There have been certain upgrades between iPhones where it was just whoa, night and day. Like, damn, dude, that is faster. That is absolutely cleaner. Wow. Holy cow, I could never go back. And I can see the difference between those two. I haven't had that experience yet. And I will come next Friday. Can't wait. Question number 129. Why would Apple have 4K video recording capabilities, but not a 4K screen, nor Apple TV being able to broadcast 4K? Okay, so I've kind of explained that. I have. I've already addressed that, Tony. So I should have addressed it to, well, number one, to the best of my ability. Number two, to your satisfaction. Why then would they not support 4K in Apple TV? Well, a few different reasons. One, why pack everything into this generation box when they could hold on to it and sell an upgraded experience within a year? That would upset some people. I don't think those people are very wise, though, if that upsets you. Because this would be the argument. I'm mad at this company for always upgrading their technology. Are you serious? I'm not talking to you, Tony. I'm talking to the invisible person who gets mad at companies that upgrade their tech. You're holding on to it just so you can force an upgrade. That's what technology is. These companies are not necessarily just in business to serve you with the latest and greatest. Our job mission is the latest and greatest. Well, it might be. I don't know how those companies stay in business, because sometimes those aren't great products that they rush out the door. So maybe the lack of 4K support would mean Apple has the capability, but components were too costly, thereby decreasing their profit margin. Apple doesn't like that. Apple makes money with hardware. Hello, we've gone over this story over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm not going to fault Apple for that. No one can fault Apple for that. It may not be the business model you'd choose, and it's not the business model you'd appreciate. Still, Apple makes its money in hardware. So if they had it, and they had the capability of doing it, why do it now if it slims their profit margin because it's a more expensive whatever, or if it's not as good of an experience with that processor that they're currently using to run the box? Maybe they're going to wait. Maybe they're going to wait until the processor can handle it seamlessly. Maybe they're going to wait until there's a lot of 4K content instead of just a bit of it. Maybe they're going to wait until next year, and then the upgraded model will have this much storage in 4K. I don't know. I don't have an answer to the question. I don't think they're holding it back intentionally. I mean, they're doing it for a reason. If they are holding it back, I'm pretty sure they're investigating it. But you got to remember, even if the box was able to handle 4K, I don't have a 4K TV. I got a 1080p TV here, 1080p TV downstairs. Still got 720p TVs, plasmas that have been running for like a decade. That's not even a joke. A decade. And they're fine. Why am I going to rush out and upgrade a TV? Pay a lot of money for something like that. I'll wait. I'll wait until the TV breaks. Then I'll upgrade. Then I'll look, start doing some research. They serve me fine. They serve me well enough. Could they be better? Sure. But it's a law of diminishing returns. I mean, at the distance that I'm sitting from the TV, I don't necessarily always see the difference. I don't know if I can even see the difference sitting this far away from the TV between a 1080p set and a 4K TV set. And certainly at a further distance. So it's always going to be trade-offs, right? Now, anybody who might have 4K TV, would be clamoring for a 4K box. I just don't. I don't know if that's the primary selling point that Apple's pushing out. I don't think they're not ready for it. They will be when they're ready for it. And I think what's going to happen is Apple's going to line up all their partners. I mean, of course, they had to get it out. They had to get something out the door. They got something out the door, getting something out the door that is optimized for certain experiences, builds an app store, builds expectations, builds everything. People want it, people like it, etc. Work through some bugs, whatever. And then, this is my guess, they're going to line up partners, key partners, and basically say, get them to do 4K content. And then when those partners have enough 4K content, then when Apple believes that it can, make a lot of money with hardware and put the component in there, then they'll go to 4K when they've got the content. I just don't think a lot of content partners have the content yet. It'll happen. It'll change eventually. But then you have to wonder, like, well, okay, that supports 4K, but I'm still watching 720p stuff, and I'm fine with it. I mean, but that's me. Everybody's got a different set of needs, but I don't fault Apple for this at all. Apple TV just doesn't, or Apple just doesn't find it to be a viable ecosystem right now for whatever reason. Those are possibilities for an explanation. You're asking me what, why, how? I mean, those are reasonable expectations, and they're not. I'm not slagging Apple at all for that at all. Question number 130. This is a rant. Okay. As you might have noticed, I'm not very happy with iOS 9. I swear it seems like they want you to gracefully navigate your phone with slow, fluid motions like they do in their ads, which seems to be the operating pace of the current OS. Not only that, but many of the new features are geo-blocked, so I can't even use Siri suggestions or even the news app. Seriously has me thinking, is perfecting an OS not just cost-effective anymore? Is Apple just too big of a company, and that's causing QC to suffer? I think QC has suffered. I think they're trying to address it best they can, and they're doing a better job, but it's not a great job. They've been public with betas. You can get a public beta and test and give feedback and send telemetry data to help make these experiences better for everybody if you're participating. I'm not going to run beta software on production machines. It's just not. I learned my lesson long ago. I'm like, this is really stupid. I'll wait. Thank you. I will wait. I'm good. And knowing full well that Apple has a lot of devices to support, they're trying to make trade-offs, right? And what if that trade-off was fluid motion but unstable apps? Which would you rather have? Would you rather have instabilities? Or would you rather have fluid motion? Now, you know how I am with fluid motion. I would choose a lack of fluid motion up front, knowing they were still going to work on it, over unstable apps. More people would be complaining because every time you opened a link, Safari crashed. Every time you did this, something happened. Bad things. Bugs happen. They happen everywhere. So I think it's a matter of priority. So as long as Apple goes back and addresses those things, I'm okay with it. Perfectly fine. I have no issue with it whatsoever. If they go back and fix it. But like I said, I'm counting on the history of iOS 7.1, iOS 8.1, for iOS 9.1 to mitigate some of the issues I've seen. Or potentially newer hardware coming down the pike here in a week to even further mitigate the frame drops. If faster hardware means better, more RAM, I don't know. See, I'd think that it wouldn't, though, because I see on my iPad, I see just as many frame drops, if not more frame drops, on the iPad Air 2 with iOS 9 than I have on the iPhone. So it's faster hardware, and it still can't handle iOS 9. So it just tells me that there's something that's missing. I don't know what that something is. And I don't know if it's going to be addressed either. I would hope. One would hope. I don't know what's throttling it. I don't know what's making it a problem. And it's past the point where the software is re-optimizing and downloading and all. No. We're past that point now. Well past that point. I can't explain. It's inexplicable. I think it's just bugs. Bugs in the code. But they're choosing, I think, to hit performance rather than hit instability. Do you feel me? In terms of... it's a guess. It's not an excuse. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. But to me, Apple should be doing this. Or setting the stage such that it's not an issue. That's what I thought Metal was going to solve. I can tell you, Metal, right now, on iOS 9 and current gen devices, because they said, oh, it's metal at the operating system level. I thought it was going to solve every single frame drop, specifically at the OS level. Not even close. With iOS 9, not even close. Flies in the Vaseline we are. Little Alice in Chains, anybody? Ugh. Flies in the Vaseline. That's... Sand in the Vaseline? It's an old saying. Am I too old? I love that song. I saw Alice in Chains in concert once. Man, it was epic. It was epic. It was cool. I'll never forget it. That was a religious experience right there. Seeing Alice in Chains in concert. Okay, so that's all the questions I have here. Let me hit refresh here on the Patreon page to make sure I've addressed everybody. Sorry I'm not able to follow live chat and Liz is traveling. Looks like I got to every one of the questions. Let's go ahead and move on to Tech News Views. This is the third part of TLDR that everybody gets every day if you're a patron. And I'm sure other people who are still listening are just like, wow, Chris does a lot of tech every day. Yes, he does. Let's go ahead and open up my spreadsheet that I need, that I go by to pull up tech news that I think is interesting. So I'm gonna dovetail. We talked about in the beginning of TLDR today ad blockers coming in iOS 9, and this being a major frustration. Well, one of the quote-unquote content blockers that was released this time around was released by Marco Arment. You might remember from, I believe, Instapaper, and then he sold that, and then Overcast. Well, he built an app called Peace, which runs on Ghostery's engine. And smart idea. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Ghostery eventually makes a content blocker. They've got an app in the App Store outright. And but it's like it's a web browser. I think they're going to move down the path of content blockers. I really do believe that, because supporting a separate web browser on iOS is just, well, it may have been reasonable for Ghostery's position, but it makes more sense for Ghostery to do their own thing. So I would expect Ghostery to have an iOS option and make it free, by and large, real soon. That would not shock me at all. So Marco basically built what he was doing on top of Ghostery's backend and licensed it effectively, and they split profits, and then sold his ad blocker. And today, he's basically pulling it. It was the top paid app for 36 hours. And to me, it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical to create an ad blocker and sell it because you're taking money out of somebody else's hands. It's hypocritical. It's hypocritical to say that you're supporting someone when you're not. That's hypocritical. You know, and it's okay for you to take content and block ads, but don't say that you support someone. That's hypocritical. That's not supporting. It's breaking the chain. I went into that at the beginning. Anyway, he pulled his app. So Peace is no more. However, I would absolutely expect that within a very brief amount of time, Ghostery is going to have their own solution. That I know of, Ghostery has not made a comment. He's also, they're offering refunds. Doesn't surprise me. Some people are doing horrible reporting about this as well. It just didn't feel right. And I think it was right. He was right. So it's disappointing to see this happen because so many people want it. And I trusted Marco. I still trust Marco. He generally has good intention. And I think it just didn't feel right for him. So he pulled Peace. There are other top content blockers out there. I'm going to be trying them as well. It's not even if you can't beat them, join them. It's like I can no longer defend the practices, these nefarious practices of ad companies. I can't. And I can already tell you that I'm lucky to get revenue through ads anymore. Lucky. I'm so lucky. But it's also diminished my ability to do a variety of things without knowing that I've got a way to pay for them. That's why the Patreon campaign works. Nothing to block. If I hold things back specifically for people who want to, who want that stuff, hey, if they're willing to pay for it, you want the banana, pay for the banana. I don't get mad at Starbucks because they sell an espresso for $2. If you don't want to pay it, don't. But I'm not going to get, the value to me is not how many people buy that espresso. It's I want it. I don't care how many espressos Starbucks sells. I don't care. I don't care. It's like me caring how many phones a company sells. I don't care. How many iPhones did Apple sell? Millions. Good for you. I don't care. I only care about the things that I want. So I get it from the user's perspective. It's another thing that kind of upsets me when people tend to concentrate on the wrong number in the Patreon campaign. Like, is it valuable to you? Is something valuable to you? Take your blinders off. If it's just valuable to you, then that's all that matters. If it's valuable to you. If you ask me what I want, I'm going to tell you what I want. If I ask you what you want, I want to know what you want. But don't tell me what I want. Leaked documents. Documents have been leaked, not a rumor. Shows second gen Chromecast has new backdrop feeds, improved Wi-Fi, fast play, set to be announced September 29th, on the eve of El Capitan. September is just turning out to be a geeky month. Between Force Friday stuff, and by the way, I have, I did unbox these on Facebook. Well, not these specifically, but the other ones. My Ahsoka Tano and Darth Vader. Oh, such an amazing set. I'm still looking for the Jakku set, the Jakku Scavenger with BB-8 and Unkar's Thug, so if you see that, let me know, because I'm buying those. Or at least, until I have them. So anyway, September, geeky month, new things, blah, 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 blah. Google's also set to, in the documents, show that they're going to announce this month that Spotify will gain Chromecast support. So that's interesting. This is a case where if you can't beat them, join them. They've got Google Play Music. It's nice to offer, but they realize that Google makes everything free. And getting users to pay for something that they're used to getting for free is kind of tricky. People are willing to pay for Spotify. So now you can have potentially a Spotify experience on a good Spotify experience on a Chromecast. So the question then you might have for me is, are you getting a new Chromecast? You know how many times I've used my old Chromecast? Can't even count. I don't know. I really genuinely don't know. Because it kind of worked, but I was like, am I really going to use it? No, I got Apple TV. I'm good. It was okay. If you live inside of Apple or in Google's ecosystem, I think a Chromecast is a compelling device. I really do. I use Google products. But honestly, AirPlay has been awesome for me. That's the only reason I like those TV attachments, AirPlay. And did I mention this yesterday? I think I did. Air Server on OS X was updated to 6.0. The most amazing capability was baked into version 6 of Air Server. So Air Server on the Mac allows you to do AirPlay mirroring from your iOS devices onto your Mac. In AirPlay 6, not only did they re-architect it because Apple re-architected the plumbing for AirPlay in iOS 9 and El Capitan, making it much more efficient, you can get 60 frames per second. We're seeing, the developer is seeing amazing gains with the new version of AirPlay in iOS 9 and El Capitan, such that it supersedes the performance of a wired connected iOS device, by way of HDMI and a USB out of the Lightning port into a Mac. It's better. Wireless has better performance. AirPlay has been re-architected to be optimized that way. So they took it one step further. You can now, I know Android games being streamed to YouTube, yawn. With Air Server on the Mac, you can now live stream anything from your iOS device onto YouTube. Boom. Done. No cables, no muss, no fuss, no clutter. It's just done. So that's something I want to experiment with here in the next few weeks. Because I was trying it with the game capture card, and I did mention this in TLDR yesterday, but it was just too much of a kludge. I got to unplug the HDMI cable, plug it in. I can only sit here because it's got to be plugged in. I got to press this button, that button, this button versus I'm streaming. Hello, everybody. And I'm laying down. So convenient. So you can live stream from an iOS device onto YouTube using Air Server on OS X. I had to talk about that again just because it was just like, wow, that's a big deal. It's a huge deal. Documents have shown that Apple held discussions with California DMV for self-driving car. Project Titan gets an engineering program manager. This documents. I like cars for what they do, but it's like tech. It's a means to an end. I'm not. It's a car. It's got a steering wheel. Oh, this is nice and that's nice, but I don't want to own a car until Apple makes one. Yeah. What? Chris, that's so hypocritical. No, it's me knowing that when Apple creates an experience, by and large, it's been a good experience. By and large. No car is perfect. But would an Apple car be better? I don't know. Who are they building it for? Are they building it for public transit? Are they building it for individuals? Who's their market? Yeah, Apple doesn't make things cheap. But if I were to actually want a car on an extended basis, if Apple were to make a car, it would be compelling. I wouldn't think twice if that was an option. I'd be like, It really, I don't think I've ever been more excited about a car. I know some people are like, Tesla. I'm like, Tesla's not it. Tesla's very sporty. I get that. I'm not a sporty kind of guy. Apple might have a sporty thing. I don't know. But I think they're moving down that path. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I think self-driving cars are going to be a thing. And Apple may very well be the one to push that ball forward. Imagine. People, who would be the car company to sell more cars? Apple's now a car company. No, they're a tech company. They're a lifestyle company. Who's going to be the company to make self-driving cars a thing? Google, I think is possible. Google doesn't get into consumer products, though. They make products for consumers, but by and large, you as a consumer are not Google's customer. You're the product. You are Google's product. If you don't realize this by now, you are deluding yourself. In a big way. You are deluding yourself. So, Apple, by and large, makes experiences for consumers. I would. Sign me up. I don't know anything about it. Sign me up. Oh, does that make me an eye sheep? Okay, I'm an eye sheep. Guilty as charged. But you've heard me slag Apple, so it's not like I'm just saying they can do everything. I don't know. I've seen a lot of cars, a lot of different cars, and a lot of them are good. A lot of them are solid. I would like to continue to drive certain cars more than others. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But an Apple car would absolutely be the most compelling option on the block. I don't like dealing with dealerships, with car dealerships. They're all horrible at different levels, every one of them. You know, the car process, owning a car, leasing a car, etc., has just been catastrophic. Well, what happens when Apple gets into that industry? What happens? Things change. Things shift. Big ways. Big ways. When Apple got into smartphones, things changed. When Apple got into tablets, things changed. Apple's now really taking TV seriously. Things are going to change. Things were already changing. If and when Apple gets into cars, if or when, well, based on this document, who knows? It could be a moonshot. We don't know. When that happens, what's going to happen to cars? You're going to have an Apple car, an iCar, or you're going to have a competitor. That's it. You're going to have I don't know, another name. It's interesting to think about. It's interesting, especially if it was a good experience, especially if it gave you everything that you wanted. I don't care about price. Price is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Irrelevant. I'd rather pay $100 for something that worked well than $10 on something that didn't. $10 was a waste of money in that case. Do you hear me? $10 was expensive in that case. Wait a minute, Chris, you spent more on the other product, the $100 product. That's more expensive. Not necessarily. $10 wasted is more expensive than $100 spent on something that you like, that you want, that you need, that you love, that you appreciate, that is better than anything that you had tried before. Price is relative. Expensive is relative. It's not that things are expensive, it's that other things are cheap. Hey, sometimes you get what you pay for. iPad Mini 4 teardown suggests it's got a 2048 by 1536 LED backlit display, high PPI. Smaller single cell 9.1. Wait a minute. Okay, obviously a smaller battery. 2 gigs of RAM, smaller form factor with the power of an iPad Air 2. So answering the question earlier, I'd probably go with the Mini and save $100. Get a smaller screen. Unless you want a bigger screen, then stick with the Air 2. But honestly, at this point, I'd probably save $100. I'd prefer that. Scrolling through to see what else is interesting. No, this is something that I had basically put in my application for. I haven't been accepted or denied. Facebook's offered a new option for journalists where you can get into the system and it helps you navigate Facebook data to better address stories. So this is something I would want to use in TLDR, scanning headlines and talking about the stories and seeing where a lot of the lion's share of attention is going. And that's the beauty of social. I can tell when something big is happening because a lot of people are talking about it. And that's, to me, it's a pretty big deal. Let's see here. Periscope, and I mentioned this yesterday and also in the LockerGnome email newsletter, they launched web profiles with recent videos, followers, and following details with total hearts received. I've got my profile, periscope.tv/Chris Pirillo. Haven't periscoped. I did yesterday. It was kind of a sloppy periscope, but it worked. I did periscope. I do it when I can. Of course, it's free, so it's usually a throwaway. Sometimes I'll use it to gather questions for TLDR, depending on what it is that I'm doing. I've been really keen on using Facebook mentions, though, for streams because they stick around, and it builds Facebook velocity. But I'm trying to figure out where Periscope fits in. I've also been experimenting. You might be asking, well, Chris, what about your working out every day? I've been experimenting this month. I don't have a scale. It broke. I want to get a new one, but I was waiting. I think I mentioned this in the vlog, which I assume everybody watches. I'm going to wait till the end of September before I get a new scale. I'm going to try to... I'm keeping from weighing myself for a month. And I'm not working out to see if, A, I can maintain, or B, I can continue that trajectory of losing weight. By the way I look, by the way I feel, I believe I am still on trajectory. I believe I've still got, a few more to go before I've still got a little belly fat, but I've lost a lot of weight. I want to be able to say that I've lost 20 pounds officially, but I don't know if I have yet. When I weigh in, of course, I'll know if I weigh 145, but Barnacules is the one who kind of inspired me to do it. Hopefully I will have lost 20 pounds overall, but then I'm going to keep going and keep on that trajectory and keep with the program to get to a healthier me. I'm not going to show you my gut. I'm not proud of it yet. I mean, you'll see it sometimes in the vlog, but I am definitely slimmer than I used to be. And I'm happy. Tech helped, although I'm not using the Apple Watch as much if I'm not working out. Maybe WatchOS 2 will push me forward. I don't know. Happy to have lost weight, though. That's when I was periscoping for a while, and then I stopped doing it that way. Because I'm not working out right now. Testing. I'm doing experiments. This is what geeks do. We run experiments. Can I lose weight by doing it this way? By not looking at numbers. By ignoring numbers. I know we're all about, number, data, but can I move past that? Is WatchOS 2 out yet? No. I really want it to be out, though. I am excited for it to be out. I can't wait. I like new operating system updates, even when they bring with them frame drops. Well, hopefully the iOS 9.1 update will be out soon. How long have we been streaming? Hang on. Can I see? Let me go on air. Hit mute there. Can I see on the YouTube page? Hang on. I'm looking. Give me a second. Live. It just says live. I can't tell. I can't tell. Interesting. I'm seeing the comments there. Once you use it, there's no turning back. What? Use what? Are you talking about a stylus? Tony? I don't know what. I think I got everything. I'm looking at the questions there on the live YouTube page for everybody who's still in chat. I am going to move on, though. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover at this time. Monday will be a normal day that I know of with TLDR. I'm going to go ahead and upload, or I guess keep this entire live video in this YouTube channel. Normally, as I said in the beginning, I'm basically trying to convince many people, those who have paid attention this long, to become patrons. And showing you the full TLDR today. Normally, it would have just been a third of this in audio in the podcast that we have on SoundCloud or through iTunes or whatever podcatcher you use. This is what TLDR is every day for people who are patrons. People who are saying, Chris, you are worth this. Every month. Every day, every month. Well, every weekday, every month. Weekends, I got to take off. Come on, hello. I'm a human being. So, thank you, everybody, for your time and your attention. I love you. I appreciate you, especially if you are a patron. If you're not, please consider being one and getting something like this every day. You would only have a fraction otherwise. I throw people a bone every so often. Gnaw on this bone. Gnaw on my bone. That sounded horrible. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and take another sip of coffee. Minimize the web browser and leave you to your own devices.